So studying abroad has always been a personal experience, and for most of us who might be watching this video, it is something that we only know from other people's word of mouth or their experience. We cannot actually really pinpoint how everything will go at the university that we plan to go to, or how it all go by itself unless we experience it for ourselves. So in this video, in my bid to help at least most of the people who are trying to apply to study abroad, I decided to talk to a couple of application experts who have at least helped a lot of international students in the past with their applications, to at least understand some of the mistakes that they think most of these applicants made when they decide to apply to study abroad, and also what they think most of these students should consider before they make a decision to pick up their suitcases to fly abroad to study. First things first, before you make a decision to apply to any university to study abroad, you have to ensure that that particular university is a good fit for you. In this video, I will share some light on some of the common mistakes that most applicants make when it comes to applying to a university abroad. And if you are looking for some tips to help boost your chances of applying to that particular university that you've also wanted to go to, then my advice is to stick around and let's learn together. Number one is applying to a master's program with the wrong bachelor's degree. I know we all live on hopes and dreams, and for some of us, whenever we get a new idea, we tend to stick to it and we don't even consider chances or even changing that particular course. But that is not as easy as you think. When you apply to a master's degree program, you can't apply to a discipline that is completely unrelated to the bachelor's program that you studied. Sometimes it's possible that some courses that you did in your bachelor's program might pre-qualify you for that particular master's program. But if your bachelor's program is unrelated to that particular master's program, then there is a very high chance that your application will not be successful. If you studied in your bachelor's to become a psychologist, and then you suddenly realize that you want to become an engineer, you can't just pick up your application and apply to a master's program in construction and just hope for the best. That is not going to work out for you, because you need the right base to build your education on. However, if it just happens that you did an example like psychology in your bachelor's, but for some reason you've developed interest in, let's say, engineering, so you want to pick up an engineering program, for this sometimes you might just be required to just pick up some independent classes in engineering just to help you build a base so that if you start that program, you will be successful. Some universities might offer you a pre-master's program where they will now introduce you to that particular program because your background is not related to the discipline that you plan to go into. Or it might be a summer program that you might just sign up for just to prepare you for the new discipline that you just want to enter. My advice is, don't just throw yourself into a pool without knowing how to swim, hoping that you stay afloat. It just does not work out like that. I know it can be very stressful when it comes to applying to reputable universities. It's possible you are getting suggestions and pressure from people around you to apply to a particular program or a particular university. The essential factor when it comes to applying to most of these universities is you have to make sure that that particular university has to be a better match for you. Assess your grades, your exams, and the electives to see that they will help you get into that particular college of choice or that particular university of choice before you even start filling up your application. Mistake number two that I have seen a lot of people make is only considering the tuition fee when it comes to budgeting for your degree. When it comes to calculating the amount of money that you need to study at a particular international university, I have seen a lot of people fall to the temptation of just searching for the lowest price tuition cost, because in their mind, that is the only ideal way to cut down on cost when it comes to studying abroad. But the truth is, this is not always the case when it comes to trying to cut down on costs. The fact is, there is more to the cost of studying abroad than just the tuition fee, and you have to pay more than just the tuition fee when it comes to going through this particular journey. And I've seen a lot of people land in that country of their choice at that university and only find themselves frustrated because in their mind they thought the only cost that they were going to incur was the tuition fee, but they get there only to find out that it is just a part of it, and sometimes it just ends up being even less than a third of the amount of money that they need. And I remember myself back in the days when we were all searching for schools and we were researching, and back then we had the Scandinavian countries offering free tuition. So places like Denmark, Finland, Sweden, Norway, and Iceland were all offering tuition fee, and most of us were trying to find our way there because in our mind they're offering tuition fee and that's the best destination. But research showed at that time that there was high cost of living in those particular areas. So even though we were going to get free tuition fee, the cost of living was going to be higher than if we had paid even tuition fee to a place like Germany, Canada, or even US. And from my experience, I will advise that before you pick any particular country for your international education, it is very important to look for countries where there's cheaper cost of living beyond just the tuition fee. So at least if you're able to find a country where the tuition fee is lower and the cost of living is lower, then you might have just hit a jackpot. But if it's just a tuition fee that is lower, without doing your research, you might find yourself going to a country where you have lower tuition fee but very high cost of living, which negates all your effort to try and cut down on your costs of studying abroad. Mistake number 3, thinking that the program's tuition fee is less than it actually is. And I'm trying to stay on this tuition fee issue for a bit because I feel that before you study abroad, you need to make sure that you have researched the tuition fee and also you understand how it actually works. I am saying this because I have seen students pick universities where they thought the tuition fee was lower because they didn't do the necessary research. In their mind, they saw a lower tuition fee and they thought that was just it, only to find out that at that particular university, they charge tuition fee by the courses that you are supposed to study. So just because they are suing, let's say, $1,000 per course, they get there only to find out that for that particular program, they need to sign up for about 16 different courses. So as a result, they have to pay that 1,000 times 16, which ends up being like 16,000. So even though they plan to pay just 1,000 for their tuition fee, they get there only to find out that they have to pay 16,000 because the tuition fee that was actually advertised was per course and not just for the whole program. What I always advise most people to do is, if there's anything that you don't understand, just send the admission coordinators an email and say, what is the actual tuition fee that I have to pay based on where I'm coming from? And most of these universities will reply to you and tell you exactly the amount of money that you need, because what is advertised might not be the total that you'd end up incurring. Mistake number 4, ignoring potential scholarships. And with this particular one, even myself, I've made that mistake where when it comes to applying to most of these universities, you have to do your research to see what potential scholarships or bursaries are available to you as a student. Sometimes you'll be surprised that based on your background, you might be the only person who ends up qualifying for that particular scholarships. All you need to do is put in the necessary application and you might just be approved. But without doing your research, you wouldn't even know that those ones exist. Myself, I was surprised when I started researching for schools in US, and I realized that there were some particular universities that, based on my background, if I decided to apply, it was going to be very easy to get scholarships. And this was mainly because most of these universities were predominantly white students, and they were trying to attract people with other backgrounds into their school just to make sure that at least they are more inclusive. So they were offering bursaries, they were offering scholarships that if I decided to apply, it was going to at least reduce the amount of money that I need to pay when it comes to tuition fee. And also when it comes to scholarships, I've seen a lot of people even count themselves out even before they even put the application. They will tell themselves, oh, I don't even qualify because I know a lot of people are going to put in an application. Based on the results that I have, I might not even qualify. But what I always say is, if you meet the minimum criteria for that particular scholarship, put in time, put your best foot forward and apply, because you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And also, you can't win the lottery if you don't buy the lottery ticket. Mistake number 5, taking the visa process for granted. And with this particular one, what I would say is, don't just think it is very easy just because a friend of yours just put in a mediocre application and got approved. And I don't want to scare you with this, but a lot of future students have made the mistake of just thinking that just because I got an admission for the school, the visa is almost guaranteed. So they take things for granted. And trust me on this, I was one of those people who fall into this category. I thought based on my profile, my visa was almost guaranteed. But trust me, I had a shock of my life. Once you have just received your acceptance letter from the university, what I would advise you to do is head straight to the embassy's portal and at least arm yourself with the information that you need to at least start the visa application process. Even if you are going to use an agent, it's very important that at least you know everything that is needed by yourself, so that at least you can police your agent and know that they are doing the right work for you. To that particular agent, you are just another applicant, but to you, that application is going to be very important. So the more information you know by yourself, the better you can at least police him. And if you are going to do the application all by yourself, at least by having the necessary information, you can start preparing and make sure that you put your best foot forward when it comes to putting in the best application possible. And one other thing that I always tell people to do is, if you've made a decision to study abroad, it is very important that you find people who are just like you, people who are in the same boat like you. So it is important to find yourself in forums, WhatsApp groups, Telegram groups of people who are of similar interests like you, where information is being shared, so that you can learn from other people's mistakes and so that you can correct yourself and not repeat some of those mistakes. And the other thing that I will always add is, when it comes to these forums, any information that you get, don't just take it like hook, line, and sinker. It is important that you see it like a signpost for you to do more research and confirm the information, because people might be sharing information based on their background or based on their profile, and your profile might be different. But at least if you have that information of what they did, you can now do your necessary research and modify it to at least suit your situation. Mistake number 6, sending in the wrong application documents. This is a problem of nuance, but some students end up making a mistake because this is their first time of dealing with this particular process, and they might not even know the difference between some of these documents. So all they will do is they will just fill any and every document that they see and just put it through. For most applications, depending on your background, there might be different kinds of forms that you need to fill in. Sometimes there might be a requirement for you to even translate documents from the language they are in to possibly English, and they will state it clearly that you're supposed to do so. And other times they will ask you to make sure that the document that you are submitting is at least notarized, and you not doing that, it might just be a wrong document that you'll be putting through, because the requirement says that make sure the application document that you are putting through is notarized. And I had this experience when I was applying to Germany, for instance, where they will tell you to send the documents that you are coming to put through to a particular institution for them to notarize and stamp it. If you don't do so and you put it through, it will be seen as a wrong document. Sometimes they might just reject it and ask for a new one. Other times they will just outright reject your application altogether, and it will just be a waste of time on your part. Mistake number 7 is not checking if you can work whilst you are studying in that particular country. So whilst I'm discussing documents and funding options and the ways to at least help you pay for your course whilst you are studying abroad, let's look at work permits. The truth is, if you want to work whilst you are studying abroad, most places you'll be allowed to work only on part-time basis, unless there is a special dispensation saying that students are allowed to work full-time. And you would definitely need a work permit for this particular purpose, because I have seen students had a shock of their life when they land in the particular school and they are told that you are not allowed to work, or it is stated on their study permit they are not allowed to work, just based on the course that they chose or the country that they chose to study in. And some other cases, they are not even sure that even post-graduation they will be issued a work permit that will allow them to work, to possibly pay back the money that they borrowed to possibly study in that particular country. So to avoid this particular mistake, make sure you've done your necessary research to know that at least the program that you are studying, or even the university that you are going to study in, you are allowed to work whilst you are studying. Because the truth is, as an international student, you might need to work to at least pay yourself one way or the other whilst you are studying abroad. Mistake number 8, thinking that they are all by themselves in this particular process. I know it can get a little overwhelming, especially when you see all these lists, but let's try to put things into perspective. You won't ever be alone when it comes to this particular process of studying abroad, unless you want to be alone. I don't know if you've noticed, since I started talking, I've mentioned a lot of people and a lot of institutions that at least you can turn to one way or the other to get help when it's needed. You can go to university application and admission counselors. You can even contact the embassies and consulates when you need answers. You can even reach out to your international affairs office when you need help. Or even you can attend to your future university, or even the current one that you are studying. They are all there to even help you. But when it comes to having access to information, I always say never be scared to ask for help. Now there are a lot of students who are trying to possibly study abroad, and there are people who are already studying abroad. And thanks to technology, we are all connected in one way or the other, either through student unions, through study abroad WhatsApp groups, through forums, even through YouTube. So always try your maximum best to reach out to somebody to ask for help if you need it. Mistake number 9 is not having a plan B prepared. Listen, I know you might have imagined a certain path for your future, but usually things can change. You just have to be ready for whatever happens and always have a safety net. Always apply to more than one master's program if possible. Have a plan A and a plan B. Just in case plan A goes wrong, you can now fall back on plan B. Because think about it, imagine you put all your effort into just applying to one particular university and you don't get in and you miss that particular intake. You might just have to now wait for possibly a whole year just to make another application. Or you might not have to go back and re-strategize and find a second university just to apply to. So always have a plan B ready, even if your plan A is almost guaranteed. Remember that there are 26 letters in the alphabet. So have one plan and possibly you can have 25 backups, but that would be too much. And this brings me to one of the points that I've always liked to make to people. Always make sure that at least one of the universities of your choice has a lower entrance requirement than your first choice. Don't just apply to all grade A schools if your aim is just to study abroad, unless you are one of those few people who know that with their grade point, there is no way that they are getting into that plan A school. Personally, when I decided to embark on this particular journey, I had one school that I always wanted, and I had 3 backup plans that I applied to. And it's funny that when it was time to now go to the visa application process, I had admissions to all those schools ready and handy. And I now have to now do my research and see which ones do I now want to accept and go through the process with. Not everybody might have that luxury, but it will be good to at least have that options available to you when it's time to now go through the process. Mistake number 10 is giving up after a rejection. And speaking of having alternatives, my advice is never to give up, because this was one of the most heartbreaking things I heard when I spoke to admission counselors when I was trying to put together this video, and also in my bid to be able to have information to advise people who had plans of also studying abroad. One of the things that most of them stressed on was the moment a student gives up. Sometimes they'll be speaking to a student and you realize this student has given up because they got one rejection. So as a result, they are just dejected and they've given up on the whole journey. What I always tell people that I speak to is, if you get one rejection, just take it as just a feedback. Make the necessary changes and just refire. So it doesn't matter what process that you are in, be it the university application process or even the visa application process. Don't let a rejection just hold you back. So these are the common mistakes that at least you can avoid when it comes to applying to study abroad. When it comes to preparing for your application, it is essential that you don't fall victim to at least any of these mistakes, because that will help you to at least enhance your chances of being a success. If you got value out of this video, kindly hit the like button so that YouTube will see value in this video and also show it to other people who are in similar boats. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can join this family as we learn together. And remember to share this video with family and friends who have plans to at least studying abroad. Thank you, and until the next video, cheers.